In the year 1206, a man stood on a windswept steppe in Central Asia with no navy, no treasury, no walls, and no city. Just horses, loyal warriors, and an ambition so ruthless it would reshape the entire world. His name was Temüjin, and the world would come to know him as Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. This is the story of the Mongolian Empire, the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Temüjin was born around 1162 into the Borjigin clan of the Mongolian steppe. His childhood was brutal. At 9 years old, his father was poisoned by a rival tribe and his family was abandoned by their own clan, left to survive alone in the wilderness. His mother kept her children alive by foraging roots and berries. As a teenager, Temüjin was captured by enemies and held prisoner in a wooden collar. He escaped. His young wife, Borti, was kidnapped by the Murkut tribe shortly after they married. He raised an army and got her back. Every humiliation, every betrayal, every loss. Temüjin remembered all of them and he began to build. What made Temüjin different from every other ambitious warlord on the steppe was his complete rejection of tradition. While other leaders organized their armies by family and clan, Temüjin promoted based purely on skill and loyalty. He reorganized his forces into units of 10, 100, 1000, and 10,000, a military decimal system that made his army fast, flexible, and devastatingly coordinated. Through a series of wars against the Tatars, the Khariids, the Naimans, and the Murkuts, he united the Mongolian tribes one by one. In 1206, at a great assembly on the banks of the Onam River, the united tribes proclaimed him Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. He was around 44 years old. His real work was just beginning. The Mongol army was not just a horde, it was a system built for total war. Soldiers traveled with up to 5 horses each and could cover 60 to 100 miles per day, distances that left any sedentary army helpless. The Mongolian composite bow had a draw weight of up to 160 pounds and an effective range of over 300 meters. A Mongol archer could fire 12 arrows per minute from horseback at full gallop. Before any major campaign, Mongol spies disguised as merchants and diplomats mapped enemy roads, identified weak points in city walls, and catalogued political divisions. And when the Mongols encountered something they couldn't do, like siege warfare, they simply found experts and learned. They captured Chinese engineers, recruited Persian siege specialists, and within a decade were cracking open the most fortified cities on earth with catapults, trebuchets, and undermining techniques. The Mongol army absorbed the best technology of every enemy it faced and immediately turned it against the next one. The first major conquest was northern China. The Jin dynasty had long viewed the Mongols as manageable barbarians, people to be bribed and contained. In 1211, Genghis Khan invaded. After years of devastating campaigns, the Mongols sacked Zhongdu, the Jin capital in modern-day Beijing, in 1215. Travelers who passed through northern China years later reported riding for days across fields of bones. Then came the event that triggered one of history's greatest catastrophes. In 1218, Genghis Khan sent a trade caravan of 450 merchants to the Khwarezmian Empire, a powerful Islamic state covering modern Iran, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan. The governor of the border city Otrar had every merchant executed, accusing them of being spies. Genghis Khan sent diplomats demanding justice. The Shah had them killed too. What followed is still described as one of the worst disasters in the history of civilization. The Mongols invaded with a force estimated between 100,000 and 200,000 soldiers. They split into multiple columns and struck simultaneously across hundreds of miles. Samarkand, Bukhara, Merv, Nishapur, Urgench, cities with populations in the hundreds of thousands, cultural and intellectual centers of the Islamic world, were systematically destroyed. Their populations were massacred, their fields were burned, their irrigation systems were wrecked. The Shah fled and died alone on a small island in the Caspian Sea. One historian who lived through it wrote, "It is unlikely that mankind will see the like of this calamity until the world comes to an end." Genghis Khan died in 1227, the exact cause still debated. Possibly a fall from a horse, possibly illness. His empire passed to his son Ögedei, and the conquests continued without pause. Under Ögedei and the brilliant general Subutai, the Mongols completed the destruction of the Jin dynasty in China by 1234, then turned their attention westward. In 1241, Mongol forces under Batu Khan and Subutai invaded Eastern Europe simultaneously on multiple fronts. They annihilated the Polish army at the Battle of Legnica, they destroyed the Hungarian army at the Battle of Mohi, they sacked cities across the continent and reached the Adriatic Sea. Western Europe, France, England, the Holy Roman Empire watched in terror. They were next, and then Ögedei Khan died suddenly. The Mongol commanders turned around and rode back east to choose a successor. Europe was never invaded again. And whether it would have survived is one of history's great unanswered questions. The conquest that still echoes most painfully came in 1258. Baghdad was the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, for 500 years the intellectual heart of the Islamic world. The House of Wisdom, the greatest library on earth, stood at its center. Hulagu Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, besieged the city. The caliph, convinced of divine protection, refused to surrender. The city fell in 13 days. The caliph was executed by being rolled in a carpet and trampled by horses. The Mongols believed royal blood should not touch the ground. The House of Wisdom was destroyed, its books were thrown into the Tigris River. Legend says the water ran black with ink for days. And the Abbasid Caliphate, which had endured for 5 centuries, ended in a week. The Mongol advance finally met its limits. In 1260, at the Battle of Ain Jalut in modern-day Israel, the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt defeated a Mongol force. The first significant Mongol defeat in open battle. The Mongols never conquered Egypt. In the east, Kublai Khan, another grandson of Genghis, launched 2 massive naval invasions of Japan in 1274 and 1281. Both were destroyed by storms. The Japanese called those storms kamikaze, divine wind. The Mongols never returned at its peak around 1270. The Mongol Empire covered 24 million square kilometers, roughly 16% of all land on Earth. It held between 100 and 120 million people. The human cost was staggering. Historians estimate between 30 and 60 million people died as a result of the Mongol conquests, possibly 10 to 15% of the entire global population at the time. Some regions took centuries to recover. Iran's population may not have returned to pre-Mongol levels until the 20th century. But here is where the story becomes complicated. After the conquest came the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace. With most of Eurasia under a single authority, trade exploded. The Silk Road operated more safely than it ever had before. Goods, ideas, and technologies moved across the continent at unprecedented speed. Marco Polo made his famous journey to China during this period only possible because one empire controlled the entire route. The Mongols themselves were notably tolerant of religion. Genghis Khan declared religious freedom across his empire. Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, and others all practiced freely in administration. The empire was often pragmatic and remarkably stable. The empire gradually fractured after Genghis Khan's death. By the late 1200s, it had split into 4 successor states: the Yuan dynasty in China under Kublai Khan, the Ilkhanate in Persia, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, and the Golden Horde in Russia and Eastern Europe. These states eventually declined, converted to Islam, were absorbed by local cultures, or were conquered by rising powers. The last successor state, the Crimean Khanate, survived until 1783, nearly 6 centuries after Genghis Khan united the steppe. Today, an estimated 16 million people are direct descendants of Genghis Khan. His face appears on Mongolian currency. His name is revered as a founding father of a nation. The man who was abandoned on the steppe as a child, who was held prisoner in a collar, who lost everything, built the largest empire the world has ever seen. And he did it in one lifetime.